By about 3100 BC, the two halves united, thereby creating one Egyptian state that lasted for millennia. The reign of this civilization can be divided into three major periods of prosperity, called the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms, and two periods of instability in between, called the First and Second Intermediate Periods. Guiding the Egyptian people was a succession of about 300 rulers, often referred to as pharaohs. Pharaoh, which means great house in Egyptian, was never the ruler's formal title. It only became synonymous with the ruling individual in modern times.
Now, during this time, there is a group of Semitic, sort of quiet invaders, and they're called in Egyptian history the HYKSOS. And there's quite a bit of points where these people were quite different from the native Egyptians, but very similar to the Semites. And what's interesting to us, of course, is that Joseph is a Semite, you see. And many have speculated that part of the reason Joseph was able to be catapulted into such prominence was not simply his ability to interpret dreams, which was pretty impressive, but because also there was a shared common heritage. And that's kind of the basic political backdrop now for Joseph coming to Egypt. It's during this period of time. It's a time in which these kings were called the Hyksos, or shepherd kings. That itself would be unusual.
HYKSOS, those foreign rulers who invaded us and we cursed them. So, stop for a minute. They were pharaohs of Egypt.
So it's clear that many things in the Quran were not known to the Arabs, which makes me move on to my second point, that the sources of the Quran could not be Jewish and Christian material. If Muhammad was copying stories from the Jews and Christians, then surely he would have copied the mistakes found in the Bible. There are quite a few examples of this, but for the present moment I will mention one. In the story of Joseph mentioned in the Bible, the leader of Egypt is referred to as Pharaoh no less than 99 times, as Genesis chapter 41, verse number 14 confirms. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Also in the story of Moses, as found in the book of Exodus, the leader of Egypt is once again referred to as Pharaoh. As Exodus chapter 2, verse number 15, it says, when Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh. On the other hand, when referring to the leader of Egypt at the time of Joseph, the Quran uses the word king, and in the time of Moses, it uses the word Pharaoh. It makes a distinction. As Surah 12, Ayah 43 confirms, the king of Egypt said, this is talking about in the time of Joseph. And in Surah 7, Ayah 104, when talking about the time of Moses, it says, Moses said, O Pharaoh. So why does the Quran make this distinction between the term king in the time of Joseph and the term Pharaoh in the time of Moses? It turns out that history shows that the time Joseph lived in Egypt was a time when it was ruled by some foreigners known as the HYKSOS, and they were never referred to as Pharaoh. The term Pharaoh came around 1500 BC at the time of the New Kingdom when Moses lived there. This is also confirmed by the British Museum Dictionary of Ancient Egypt, where they say from the New Kingdom onwards the term was used to refer to the king himself. Also, the noted Egyptologist Toby Wilkinson clearly states in his Thames and Hudson Dictionary of Ancient Egypt that the use of Pharaoh for Egyptian rulers before the New Kingdom, the time of Moses, is strictly anachronistic and best avoided. This example alone is enough to silence anybody who claims that Muhammad got his info from Jews and Christians, as we can clearly see that the Quran corrected the unhistorical information found in the Bible.
You mentioned about the name of Pharaoh. I have looked that up, but I don't have my reference there. But when I looked it up, what it said was that the word Pharaoh was indeed used before the time of Moses, but it was used for the whole house. So talking about the dynasty in the house, not of the king in particular. We do need to realise, though, that we don't have huge amounts of information from this time. And so, from my research, the word was certainly used in Egypt, but it was targeted more at just the house of Pharaoh rather than the individual. And I would agree with Zakir that by the time of Moses it's referring to the individual, but from the research I have done, and I couldn't find my reference just quickly then, the word was from that time just referring to the house, and so it's not completely anachronistic.
Basically, he admitted that the historical error is there in the Bible. So what if the house, the king was of the king was called Pharaoh? Fact is, the Quran got it right and the Bible got it wrong. So if the Quran came from Satan, that means Satan knows history better than Yahweh. So thank you for affirming that point. He says that Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, he followed some of the customs of the Jews. Yes, when he never got a commandment from Allah, he would follow some of the customs of the Jews because they were people who had the scripture before. That doesn't mean that the Quran copied from the Bible, because my one example, the Quran corrected the Bible. I can give more examples, but I don't need to. Samuel actually affirmed what I said.
Just with that thing on Pharaoh's name, what I showed was that the name of Pharaoh was known at the time of Joseph. And so it's not that the name is unknown, I'm saying, but it was applied to the whole house. And so it's quite valid, the point I've raised.
He didn't answer my point about the Quran being correct on the Pharaoh. He basically admitted the Bible's incorrect. Then he mentioned the Quran is not miraculous, basically. But I mentioned that this unmiraculous human book that he believes, the Quran, corrected the Bible on history.
75% of the wonderful Quran in my wonderful language of Arabic is from the Bible.